Hey, this is Amy with Flower Moxie, and today we're going to be doing a rounded out symmetrical centerpiece. So this is the ultimate goal, and I've got a Lazy Susan. And first of all, I want to talk about kind of what we did here. Our volume flower is baby green, dianthus, and hydrangeas. And what we've done is we've dispersed it throughout. So in organic styles, we cluster things together and things have movement. But when we're building symmetrical, we more disperse and polka dot things all the way through instead of doing clusters like we do with an organic design. Okay, so let's get started. And what I'm working with is a 5-inch compote. So never be afraid that the fact that the vase is smaller than what your ultimate arrangement will be. And you're going to use floral foam. And it's really important to use a vessel that's solid in color, that way you can use floral foam. Because if I were to try to build that in glass, I wouldn't be able to get that shape and that size. So we're using 1/3 brick. And then we push it into our compote. And I always like to have about a 1-inch raise of the foam. That way I can drive things sideways instead of letting it be below the mouth of the foam. And this one's already wet foam with water. And make sure that you definitely have water in the vessel, especially if you're using hydrangeas, because they don't love to be in foam without water. So the trickiest thing about a symmetrical bouquet is or a centerpiece is to do them all the same at the same size. So you'll make one that you love and then the next one will be all wonky. And these are pretty large. Like the one that I built is probably $40 to $50 to DIY it. But you can do the same thing, just pull it in tighter and use less product. So how I get started with this is I'm really consistent about giving myself markers, and I typically do that with greenery. So this is my lemon leaf. And what I'm doing is more for myself than the arrangement. I'm deciding how far my centerpiece is going to come out, and I'm going to decide how high it is. And by doing this with my greenery, I know that I can keep kind of consistent in my placement. Okay. A little bit lacking in space. Big time. Okay. So you'll see me a lot green things out first with organic bouquets, centerpieces, but not so much on symmetrical ones, especially when I'm using hydrangeas, because they take up so much space. If I were to just heavily green this out, I wouldn't have enough real estate for my hydrangeas. Okay, I'm gonna get this out of the way. Sorry, I'm working on a little cart today. So as I'm spinning this, you can kind of see that I have my margins and my size set. So then it's a matter of backfilling with my hydrangeas first. So this one I've already cut. And placement's important. I can hang it really low, but I'm not going to do that because I want to see the bowl. And I insert this hydrangea kind of upright. And as you can see, it doesn't hang over my lemon leaf. And what I'm doing is I'm going on the opposite side. And the reason why is because basically it disperses the weight. Yesterday, I was just building on one side and it toppled out because these guys can be so top heavy. So my recipe on this is I'm using about 6 hydrangeas, about 3 baby greens, about 3 dianthus, and then hypericum berries, So even though this is an all cream and green centerpiece, you can easily make this blush by doing like sweet Eskimo roses, doing pink hypericum berries. I'll take that out for now. One thing also to notice when you're using hydrangeas, some of them are turned sideways. So like this one doesn't go straight up, it's kind of turned. So, there we go. So I would use this as like an outer facing one than one upright because I'd have this like weird slant to it. So I kind of pay attention, this one's all facing upright, so that's gonna go straight in the middle. Of course I cut this one to be higher, drive it down into my foam, and I can kind of see in the mirror. So I'm looking at my placement, okay? And I've got holes, and now it's a matter of filling in my holes. Okay, so how I do this and get like that consistent look is I just section it off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cluster greens around this white hydrangeas so we can disperse the greens evenly throughout. And I just work a section at a time because once you get this far, you kind of have your foundation built, and it's just a matter of, I'm gonna turn this kind of sideways. Let's see here. Okay, so you guys can see. So to me, it's not as hard artistically to do these. It's basically, in my mind, taking turns. So I put in a dianthus, I put in some greenery. Now I'm gonna put in a berry. So basically, it's like I'm taking turns with all of these things. And I'll do this section, and then we'll kind of cut to where it's almost finished. Because I know you probably don't want to see me build this for 10 minutes. I always cut kind of long, and then I pull in as I go. Because you can always cut it shorter. Let's get in baby green hydrangeas. And figuring out the shape and turning things a certain way goes a long way. We'll put these guys in at the end. And let's see here. I have a smaller workspace today. And this is a really good point. So thistle is a texture that I like a lot. And on one stem, you've got multiple stems, and naturally it wouldn't look good if I just like blew it out with that huge piece of thistle. So you find me like cutting it into pieces. Kind of scatter it throughout. Always pull off leaves that can't be seen, because pushing leaves down in there is just going to make it harder for you at the end. Like you'll run out of space and things will get really crowded. So it's kind of hard when you're a new florist or when you're not used to designing to tear so much of it off. Another thing that I look for, let's see here. We'll look for this at the end. But anytime I'm doing a centerpiece, I'm always gonna like lower it to show myself what it would be like at a table when people are seated. So when I start seeing gaps like this, I'll backfill not with flowers, but with greenery to kind of hide those mechanics. So you never wanna see like into a centerpiece, you wanna block that. Okay, I'm about at the end, and basically I just kept doing what I did at where we ended. And it just takes a while to work through each section and those gaps and kind of filling them in. So like when I have holes like this, at the end, this is why lazy Susans are helpful, and especially if you kind of get back. One of like the problem solving techniques that I use is if you get back and it's looking like a little bit wonky or misshapen or not so like perfectly domed, a lot can be fixed by just like pushing in and tightening in these flowers. So maybe it's like, let me kind of show you an example. So if this was kind of hanging out, an easy fix, like we can kind of tell from a distance that it looks a bit misshapen and wonky. So I'm just gonna drive this in a little bit tighter. So kind of avoid taking things apart. So let's look at this hole right here. I have a hole and I don't want to stuff another hydrangea in that hole, but more than likely I can fix this by taking this out and repositioning it and going in a smidge tighter. So now that hole doesn't exist. And hydrangea is really nice about like, you can kind of manually fluff it. And it's one of those things, I can keep adding flowers until the cows come home. And at some point you just kind of have to stop and know that it's good enough. But at this point I'm kind of looking for gaps in my disbursement. So if I notice I have like huge concentrations of white, so like let's say if I had all these, I need to go back and backfill and break it up with, in this case, green. So if you were to do blush or lavender, you could use some carnations, you could use obviously roses, hypericum berries. I typically design everything to have a greenery, a texture, a volume flower, and an accent flower, which would be like my anemones. So we have our berries and our thistle, which is our texture. We have coverage, which is our hydrangeas. And then our greenery would be the lemon leaf. So just to recap, I used about 5 or 6 hydrangeas, probably 1/4 bunch of thistle, probably 1/4 to 1/5 bunch of hypericum berries, and 1/6 bunch of lemon leaf. So if you were to DIY this, you would probably be spending around $40 a centerpiece. But you could break it down to 30 if you made it a little bit smaller. So anyways, hope that was helpful for you. Have a great day.